My daughter and I recently went on a birding trip to Southeastern Oklahoma, and it turned out to be among the best birding trips I've ever taken. Our big birding adventure took place March 14th at Sherwood Forest. Well, that isn't the actual name of the place. I just called it that because it's a forest that surrounds Sherwood Road. We made it to southeastern Oklahoma and drove through Broken Bow, then north on Highway 259. That turned out to be a bit of a mistake, as we had forgotten it was spring break and the place was insane. Broken Bow used to be a semi-sleepy mountain town surrounded by beautiful scenery, but in the last decade or more, it has exploded into a favorite vacation destination, especially for people who live in North Texas, such as the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And it is just one tourist trap after another for several miles north of Broken Bow on 259. We made it out of traffic and got to Sherwood Road, which, although it sounds enchanting, has a ton of litter along the sides for the first half mile or so off the highway. Sad. It's a paved road, but its condition is somewhat poor. Not too bad though. For a ways, there are quite a few clear cuts from the lumber industry, but eventually you get into the bigger pine trees of the wilderness area, which is exactly what we were looking for. And once we eventually got into the woodpecker's preferred habitat, we rolled down our windows and drove slowly, listening for birds. All of a sudden, I heard a bird calling, then told my daughter, "Stop the vehicle!" I knew the call, but I also knew I'd never heard it in the wild before. I was pretty sure it was a red-cockaded woodpecker call, which I had heard recordings of. My daughter picked it up on the Merlin app, and sure enough, that's what it was. And while I was happy to get the sound ID, I wanted to observe the bird with my own eyes, so we got out of the vehicle, and to our amazement, there were many red-cockaded woodpeckers within a circumference of maybe 200 feet. We counted 8 birds, and all of them seemed to be paired up. However, they would all sometimes get around each other, even in the same tree, and they weren't fighting or anything. In fact, they appeared to communicate with loud calls and dancing. Their behavior was somewhat similar to brown-headed nuthatches, which were also prevalent in the area as well. It was quite surreal to be among such a jovial experience, a time I will certainly never forget. The red-cockaded woodpecker is a federally endangered species due almost exclusively to habitat loss. Like a lot of endangered and threatened birds, their nesting routine is a bit delicate. Whereas most woodpeckers nest in dead trees, or the dead branches of live trees, the red-cockaded woodpecker nests in the trunks of live trees. And those trees typically need to be 80 years old or older and have red-heart fungus inside of them. The fungus softens the dense inner part of the tree trunk and allows these woodpeckers to excavate their specialized homes. So, they rely on old-growth pine forests that burn frequently, leaving the understory mostly clear of younger pines and hardwoods. Logging has reduced the habitat of these birds substantially, but I would say that although they're endangered, their population is stable. As long as they have some protected areas, such as national forests where these old-growth pine trees are allowed to exist, their population will probably remain the same. Once the birds create a cavity home, they tap little holes all around the outside so that tree sap oozes out and surrounds the nesting hole. The sap that comes out is a barrier to keep snakes, particularly black rat snakes, from getting into the nest and eating eggs and nestlings. There are about 100 red-cockaded woodpeckers in Oklahoma, and nearly all of them are found in the wilderness area, and a few in the surrounding Ouachita National Forest. The fact that we found 8 of those birds was pretty darn exciting. It was also exhilarating to have them flying overhead and witness their behavior. They, along with the brown-headed nuthatches, were making such a racket it was just surreal. We checked other portions of the wilderness area, places we thought might also have some birds, but we didn't hear any more woodpeckers, only in that one area. The red-cockaded woodpecker was a life bird for me and my daughter, and the brown-headed nuthatch was a big-ear bird for us as well. Later, we continued down the road and found a first-of-season black and white warbler. These birds are among the first to return from their wintering grounds. I also heard, and Merlin picked up, a northern parula and a common yellowthroat, but I'm certain I'll see these birds many times in the next couple of months, so I will not count them at this time. My last Big Year Update video ended with the brewer's blackbird, Big Year bird number 105. Since then, I've seen quite a few birds, but the sightings have been sporadic, so I haven't made any videos. On February 10th, I saw my first of season wild turkey, just a single female on the shoulder of the highway near where I live. Oddly enough, she lived alongside the highway for about 3 weeks, then disappeared. She seemed to be thriving and would often be seen in the middle of the median or on the side of the road. Then, one day she was gone. I searched up and down the highway, but didn't see any signs that she'd been hit by a car, so maybe she just joined a flock and went back to the woods or something. At least I hope that's what happened. And just a word of caution, if you see wild turkeys near a road on which you are driving, use caution as these birds can fly in front of vehicles. About a decade ago, I covered a wreck where a lady hit a wild turkey while driving about 70 miles an hour. Being that these birds are quite heavy, it caused a lot of damage and nearly went through her windshield. I recall she told me that glass went all over the place inside. On February 12th, in a swampy area, I saw some wood ducks and rusty blackbirds, which was nice because I don't always get rusty blackbirds every year. One evening, February 19th, I visited a rural residence, hoping to find some owls. While I was waiting, just after sunset, I heard then saw a hermit thrush, which was nice because I knew they weren't going to be around much longer. It was nearly too dark to see when a great horned owl flew up and landed in a tree not too far from where I was. Here's an absolutely crummy photo of the bird that I had to rework quite a bit as it was so dark when I took it. On February 25th, I saw a purple finch on my way to Hagerman Wildlife Refuge. While at the refuge, I added a greater yellowlegs, a lesser yellowlegs, blue-winged teal, and then a bird that was not quite a lifer, but was a huge deal for me anyway. It was the reason I headed to the refuge in the first place, as many people had reported hearing American woodcocks early in the morning or late at night in a certain area. I stayed quite late at the refuge, and for a while after sunset, I wasn't hearing anything. I was kind of dejected, and as I was getting ready to leave, out of nowhere I heard the unmistakable call of the American woodcock. Normally, I don't like to rely on sound identification for a big year bird, as I would prefer to see one with my own eyes. But with this bird, just hearing it, and knowing I was about 50 yards away or less, was good enough for me. And even though I'd heard the woodcock's pink call many times on recordings, this was the first time actually hearing one with my own ears, which was quite special. It was big year bird number 115. In early March, not far from where I live, a group of birders heard a pine warbler, which was quite a ways out of its normal range. I went to the area and heard and then saw the bird. It was in a pine tree of a residence, but no one was home, and I didn't want to trespass, so I just relied on the sighting and no photo. But here are some photos I took at a previous time. A few days later, while visiting some friends, I heard something odd. We were all outside, and everybody was talking and the kids were playing, so it was hard to distinguish or make out what it was, but I knew something was happening. Eventually, the wind subsided a bit and there was a lull in the fun, and then I knew what the sound was. Migrating sandhill cranes. I walked over and looked and eventually saw about 150 to 200 birds. They were so far away, and I forgot my long lens camera, so all I came up with was a crummy cell phone photo. They were quite far away and way up in the sky. It was without a doubt the largest number of sandhill cranes I'd seen at any one time, and I mean they were way up there, but there was no mistaking their bugling calls. I was so happy to see them as I lived slightly out of their normal migrating path. On March 5th, I heard my first of season fish crow flying near my home. Where I live, 10 years ago it would have been impossible to see one of these birds, but now they are everywhere spring and summer, and quite common as well. The range of these birds has expanded to the northwest quite a bit in the last few years. On March 7th, I walked outside to a noisy flock of common grackles in a tree near my home. Big-ear bird number 119. On March 12th, I had to travel a bit, so I decided to visit Hagerman National Wildlife Refuge again. While in Sherman, I visited a shopping center and noticed a bird on a wire. I figured since it lacked any dark feathers that it was a northern rough-winged swallow, and sure enough, that's what it was. I love seeing these birds return every year, and I was able to get a fairly decent photo. While nearing the refuge, I saw a first-of-season purple martin, and then at the refuge, I saw a few forester's terns, big-ear bird number 121. The red-cockaded woodpecker, brown-headed nuthatch, and black and white warbler made it big-ear bird numbers 122, 123, and 124, respectively. Migration is going to be ramping up soon, and I hope to travel a bit, but if not, I still should be able to add quite a few birds to the list. And before I go, let me just say, recently I was working on putting out a lot more videos, but a series of unfortunate events has set me back in many ways. Well, unfortunate is a little weak. Disastrous events is a better descriptor. I'll touch on that in a later video, but these events will greatly hamper my big-ear efforts. But no matter what occurs, I will not give up. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already.
Oh, hello. I'm Randy from Randy's Natural World. I hope you enjoyed the video on
The red-cockaded woodpecker.
Yes, that's it. Today I'm pretending to be a scientist. Maybe I'm doing research on a 5 o'clock shadow, I'm not sure. But that's neither here nor there. I'm hoping to speak to those of you who haven't subscribed yet. Here's a list of reasons why you should. It's free. You can't beat that price. Number 2, quality content. Always quality content. Number 3, YouTube allows unlimited subscriptions, so there's no reason not to. Anyway, number 4, are you a procrastinator? There's no need to procrastinate. And I know what you're thinking, Randy, I'll subscribe when I get around to it. Well, here's your round to it right here. Round to it. So go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead. A wise decision.